Hello, friends. We are here with episode 98 of the Our Weekly Highlights podcast. As usual, I like to kick it off in these series of 90 episodes, a little fun trivia to put my co host on the spot here. But, Mike, here's my question for you. In the year 1998, a certain tech company was founded that one might say has kind of changed the entire landscape of the tech industry. What do you think that was?
Apple?
Good guess, but at the risk of showing my own age,
Or way
uh,
before that?
Apple was around even in my early days when I had an Apple
Yeah.
II GS. So for the
Just
hardcore user,
nobody bought their hardware
not very
back
many,
then.
although I did, and I kind of paid for
Uh,
it before the Mac days. But I'll give you one more guess. What do you think?
I feel like Nvidia is a lot younger than that. 98. You got me.
All right, a little thing called Google.
Oh, I
Yes,
would have
it's
thought
hard
that
to
they were older
believe.
than that too.
Google was from 1998, founded in California by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. And yes, the rest, as they might say, is history. Depending on your perspective, that might be better or worse. But no, mostly a lot of innovations have happened regardless. So that's your fun fact for 1998. And yes, the Red Wings repeated as Stanley Cup champions. I'm going to throw that in there too. Ha ha. All right. All right, enough of my ranting about days of past. We're here for our weekly, right? So we got an awesome issue. But first, Mike, I gotta ask, how are you doing today?
I am doing very well. I'm just thinking about Google in 1998, and maybe that is the reason since 1998 haven't had as many folks coming door to door selling me encyclopedias. So I think they might have put that industry out of business, which maybe is a good thing.
That could be a case of correlation implying causation. I don't know, but we'll leave it at that. Yes, a lot of things have changed in the business sector since that time. But one thing that hasn't changed, we have another awesome issue of our weekly, and our curator this week is Kelly Bodwin. I know, Kelly, you've had quite a scramble to get things fitted in, so I always appreciate your time on this. And you've got an awesome issue for us to discuss. And as always, she had great help from her fellow Our Weekly team members and contributors like you around the world. Well, it's another episode of Our Weekly Highlights. And guess what? We have another showcase of Quarto's capabilities, which you've been hearing about quite a bit lately. To take a step back for a second, at least for me, the biggest paradigm shift for those of us who grew our literate programming and reproducible document skills with our Markdown is that Quarto itself is not tied to one specific language. Thanks to the architecture under the hood of Quarto of sending language computations to specific engines, we can seamlessly integrate code from multiple languages in the same document, in the same website. Whatever we produce with Quarto, we can have that interoperability out of the box. Now, the classical example from my days in R Markdown, although it's still even prevalent in Quarto, we'll hear about later, is the handoffs between R and Python that was piggybacking on the shoulders of Reticulate. Very powerful, still very powerful. But one thing that Quarto comes with out of the box is support for client side interactivity inside web based reports. This is opening the door to harness the power of JavaScript inside your document in multiple ways. Now, if the amount of R packages available or Python modules available gets your attention, oh, you should see what's available in the world of JavaScript. It can actually be kind of overwhelming, to be honest. But have no fear, folks. Quarto brings full support for one of the more innovative niches in the JavaScript ecosystem, Mike Bostic's Observable JS. And our first highlight shows just how elegant this multi language approach is. And it happens to be straight from a JavaScript extension developer. This is authored by Nicholas Lambert, who's a research engineer in geographic information. He has authored a Quarto HTML document to produce a set of very clean, interactive maps using his own Burton.js library, but with R code to prepare the data handoff. And so, as kind of mentioned now, the report kicks off with some light pre processing of worldwide population and GDP metrics categorized by country, with some spatial geometries thrown in from the popular SF package. And then now the inner op magic begins by preparing the data set for observable JS using a built in function called OJS underscore define. This is built into Quartal, folks. You don't have to install this yourself. This is my first aha moment for me is that this world of JavaScript, you get it free. Like this is amazing here. And then observable JS actually comes in again through Quartal with built-in widgets that would be familiar to anyone who's developed a Shiny app or leveraged crosstalk within R Markdown, as well as some classical interactive visualizations. But much like how you can load any R package into your R session or Quartal document that you have installed, you can load any open source JavaScript library within observable JS, such as what's used in this document, one called G Overview, and also the author's Burton JS. You can load these easily in Quartal without having to install them yourself using what's called JS Deliver, Content Delivery Network or CDN. Again, I'm kind of blown away by this, but the author clearly shows that he loaded two of these JavaScript libraries without any fuss, just a simple call to a require function. That should sound familiar to our users, and it's all set to go. So the remainder of this document is filled with, pretty quick and concise examples that are both static and interactive views of the world maps with overlays like bubbles that are sized by population and colors by the amount of GDP. And I'm just really impressed with how clean this is, how accessible this is. But again, the big picture here is that we have ourselves an author of a JavaScript library who has discovered the power of Quartal and has created what one might view as kind of like a package vignette for his extension, but it's tailored toward the data science audience with tools that they are familiar with, like now Quartal and using R to prepare the data. That's amazing. I think this opens the doors for a bunch of possibilities here on how we can tie in these worlds of reproducible reporting, communication, and data science with R, but then taking those visualizations to the next level with observable JS, again, built right into Quartal. I've seen this in the documentation, but seeing this post is a great way to hit it home for me that this is technology that's right for the taking. And I can't wait to put this in practice with some other projects that I have going. So, as you can tell, Mike, I was blown away by this. What did you think about this report
That
here?
blown away is the right phrase. I think this was absolutely mind blowing for me. I just as much as you and the anybody else out there, I love Shiny. But any tools that enable us to share our work with others without having to host it on a server somewhere are just incredibly powerful, because it allows us to be really flexible with the type of deliverable that we're providing the end user. I'm so excited to see the capabilities we have with Quarto and observable JS. Until now, I've only seen sort of the basics with OJS in Quarto, like bar charts and histograms with maybe a checkbox or a slider. And I haven't actually tried it myself, to be honest. I've gone through the Quarto guide online and played around with what's available up there. I know I'm slacking, but I will get to it soon. But it looks like now, thanks to Nicholas and maybe some others as well, we're starting to see some examples of using other JavaScript libraries with Quarto that just extend the realm of possibilities so far. And like you said, there's a brief mention of a JavaScript library called Geo Overview, which I think is very briefly mentioned, but it makes this really nice interactive chloropleth map, which is the first map in the blog. And I'm not 100% sure how that's related, if at all, to the Burton library. But like you said, and one thing maybe I didn't necessarily realize is that you have the ability to import any open source JavaScript library within Quarto, which is crazy powerful. And I, you know, my mind is racing right now with all of the utilities that we have in JavaScript that we may have the potential now to bring into Quarto. And man, it's crazy. It's incredible. One other thing I guess I'll note is that on the Quarto website, it does say that dashboards are coming soon. So I am excited for when we get something like Flex Dashboard in Quarto, and not just in our Markdown, where again we can just have the client side do most of the work in these documents and have these really easy file handoffs to end users if that's a use case, if that fits our use case at the time. So definitely going to be staying on top of all the news in this space, and really appreciate Nicholas putting this blog post together, because it's the first that I've seen that really dives deep into JavaScript and Quarto.
Yeah, and I know that things like this, the technology behind this post and the other examples that you've been referencing, I think are going to be the foundation for, in essence, the Flex dashboard like functionality that's coming soon. It was easily one of the most requested items back at our studio conf when we were hearing the presentations about Quartal, because Flex dashboard has been so popular in the R Markdown ecosystem. But with everything, with the underpinnings that we're seeing here, it's obviously just a matter of time. I think we're going to be seeing that. I don't want to put, timelines on people, but I got to think that in the coming months we're going to be seeing this, and it's going to be a huge game changer for the Quartal document and website authors that want to do these completely self-contained documents that can be interactive, very powerful, and simply passed around as an attachment, so to speak, or hosted externally, whatever have you. You can do it both ways. Um, I still just can't get over the fact that no installation was needed to load these libraries. I have When I was learning, and I'm still learning JavaScript. What am I? I'm not an expert at this yet. But when I was fooling around with some libraries, especially around like automated, kind of like Selenium like testing, I remember having fits with, npm and Node.js and trying to get all the dependencies in. And I don't want to fault those projects; they're obviously very powerful, but it can be a whirlwind to get all that set up. So I just, maybe if you haven't been around this ecosystem for a while, it may not really resonate like it is for me, but this just saves so much friction to have all this available to you. So the fact that the Quartal developers have, made the decision to hook on observable JS as like that foundational piece that can probably get you pretty far on its own. But then when you want to do the extensions, like what these mapping utilities are showing, you have that right at your fingertips. That just can't get over that. That is just amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's like the tiniest bit of code too. It's literally just require the package and then the version of the library that you want to use. It's incredible. It's very R like syntax, I guess.
Yeah, and
If you're from the require side of the bridge, as opposed to the
oh,
library side of the bridge.
oh, uh-oh, did I sense a package loading, debate? Oh, no, no, no. We don't need that.
That blog that blog post coming next week.
I bet we will, yeah, I bet that'll be a hot take one of these days, but in essence, what's hot here is, like I said, this interoperability of different languages in Quartal out of the box. That is just straight up awesome. So, well, and speaking of awesome, one resource that I'll put in the supplements of this episode is we're seeing all these resources around Quartal just pop up left and right. Well, there is this great website called Awesome Quartal on GitHub. It's actually a GitHub README that is kind of indexing all these different uses of Quartal. I think that's one to keep an eye on as these new tutorials and these new showcases pop up as one central place to keep track of it all.
Absolutely, good shout out. Sounds like a the big book of Quarto.
Yeah, I think we may be seeing one of those again soon too. Well, speaking of starting things up, I don't know if you've been envious like I have, Mike, but have you ever seen like a really cool developer online that's doing a screencast or doing a demo? And then they've got like this amazingly tricked out setup with like their terminal showing all these different statuses and loading all these things just as their terminal was launching. Maybe I'm too geeky on this. I don't know. But yeah, probably not.
Well, I was going to, say you might wanna look in the mirror to answer that question. I've seen some of your live streams and the bells and whistles that go off when somebody, when somebody posts a comment and the background music and oh, yeah, your
Oh,
dev
yeah.
container setup.
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to live the life. I'm trying to live the life, but I still have a long ways to go. Now, that's just straight up like developer stuff, but over in our favorite land of R here, you can actually have some of those enhancements too. Now, I'll put a plug in for a tool or a package from called Prompt from Gabor Sardi that lets you bring a boatload of customization to that friendly R console prompt in case you get a little tired of that little, greater than sign just kind of staring at you. But that's not all. The startup package, authored by the esteemed Henrik Bengtsson, who is the creator of the future package ecosystem, easily one of my favorite, domain specific package, set of libraries. He has authored the startup package, which brings you a ton of flexibility to configure what and how your R experience kicks off when you get started. Now, it should be said that R comes with capabilities out of the box to do some customized startup behavior. And you can use that with combinations of user defined files called .r profile or .r environ to load environment settings. By the way, if .r profile sounds familiar to you from the land of Packrat and renv, that's what it uses to change the package library on startup. So you've probably seen it, even if you haven't made it yourself. Now, for simple operations, the default behavior might be good enough. I certainly acknowledge that. You can do a lot with it. But there may be other situations where you deal with complexities like wanting to conditionally execute certain operations based on maybe what execution environment you're in, or to load certain environment variables at specific times. You are on the hook to do all that bookkeeping yourself if you want to stick with the default paradigm. But the startup package takes the good of the default behavior, but then brings in flexibility by supporting the ability to have multiple startup scripts, multiple environment variable files, using a directory structure. This is actually very common for almost all of the Linux tools that I use, especially the command line ones, on a daily basis in my day job. You'll see these configuration directories that have a boatload of things inside. Well, with startup, we can have that too in the R side of things. So version 0.19 was released just a few days ago. It's got a few quality of life enhancements and bug fixes. This is going to sound niche, but I can see the power of this. But you can now utilize an environment variable called r underscore startup underscore file, where you can map that to a separate R script stored somewhere on your local system to execute after all the startup operations have been completed automatically. So you don't have to do like source startup script.r or whatever. It is just going to startup package is going to take care of finding that and load it for you automatically. Again, could be very handy for conditional execution. And let me conclude here with a very important use case for why startup is so beneficial to someone like me. I have to come a little bit of confession time, Mike. Be nice to me on this. But I have in my Linux account at the day job a .r environ file that has probably over 50 environment variables set up, and many of them are quite confidential in nature. A lot of API keys, PATs, access tokens, you name it, database logins. Oh, do I feel icky putting all that in one place at once?
But
Now,
it's in our Git it's get ignored though, right?
it is get ignored. Yes, I did
Okay.
something right here. But here's
No
where things
trust tree.
yes, yes. But here's where things got a little crazy for me is that if I was helping a colleague with how to get set up with their environment variables to connect to like that external API or database that's hosted on AWS or whatnot, and I'm showing them, oh, yeah, you need to define this environment variable. Let me show you how I did. And suddenly I've just shown them all 50 things. Ah, no, that's bad. So the fact that startup could let me segregate these environment variables and logical groupings as separate files and then only bring them into my R session based on maybe the project I'm working on or where I'm launching the project from, startup will let me only load what I need at startup. Whereas right now, in my default behavior that I just confessed, all those environment variables are being loaded no matter what project I'm on, and who knows what can happen from that. Now, that's obviously a niche case, but that can also be very handy if you're trying to keep things a little more clean, especially if you're dealing with multiple systems on a network and HPC systems. So, again, to Henrik's style, this is a utility that I think is very much valuable, especially to those of us that are leveraging R in multiple software environments and making sure that we have the right setup, the right startup at the right time. Very cool package. I definitely will be leveraging this to clean up some of my wrongs, so to speak, in my environment variable management and startup script management. But I had fun reading about this for sure. But Mike, I don't know if I convinced you or not, but startup is pretty fun for me at least.
No, so have you actually used this package before, Eric?
I have
Startup?
not, but I will be this week.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like an incredible package. I have probably leveraged the .r profile file and pushed it maybe a little further than it should ever go. If you haven't had much experience with that file, you may have seen it just suddenly appear in your R project when you initialize a renv or a packrat project. And it essentially it just that R profile file runs a script if you're initializing an renv environment. It runs a script called activate.r that runs when that R project file gets clicked. And really that's all that happens. Essentially, whenever you click that R project file and open it, the first thing it does, as you'll find out in this blog post, or the second thing it does, I guess, is run whatever's in your .r profile file. I have edited the R profile file or created one to launch a Shiny app when you double click on the R project file, kind of like
Ooh,
faking the experience of an executable
that
file.
is really
So
slick. I never thought about that. Pretty cool.
yeah, so don't. Well, I'm glad that you think that it's cool. I thought you might hate me for that, but
Ah.
the client didn't have much for budget in terms of actually getting the Shiny app stood up and hosted somewhere. Unfortunately, wah wah wah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but like you said, one of the really really cool aspects of this startup package, I think that is incredibly useful and is lacking from the current just workflow of that R profile file is setting secrets or essentially loading secrets from as environmental variables conditionally based on a different environmental variable. And I think that's super super powerful. I can see a ton of use cases where that would be helpful. That's about halfway down the blog post. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely take a look at the package down site where there is some great documentation around that. I will throw out one warning to everyone. There are some syntax differences if you are on Windows, of course. Thanks,
Oh.
Bill Gates. Um,
Ugh.
but everything looks like has been covered, whether you are on Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever. So incredible package to be added into the ecosystem. I think it's absolutely brilliant work by Henrik, and like you, Eric, I'm excited to try implementing startup into some of my more production workflows.
Yeah, and the other use case that I have actually coming up very soon is we are in the process of configuring ways to launch dedicated HPC jobs on nodes that are spun up in AWS, where the environment there is going to be probably a bit different than what we have internally at our company firewall. So we got to be able to have ways of conditionally check for those and then load the appropriate resources authenticating to things like S3 buckets or databases and the like. So really, really cool stuff. And once you're in these situations where that default behavior just doesn't quite get you far enough, yeah, the investment in startup is more than worth your time. And Henrik, to his credit, much like the future ecosystem, has done a tremendous job of documenting all the nuts and bolts of how startup works. So you can get started, pun intended, very quickly. Speaking of something that I understood maybe quickly or not so quickly is the subject of our last highlight, where we often hear about one of the praises in the R ecosystem, especially around visualization, is leveraging the grammar of graphics in ecosystems like ggplot2. That has become the mainstay for many of our visualization needs from the very beginning. Well, you've also heard in many episodes of our weekly highlights about the very powerful grammar of tables implemented by Richie Owen's GT package, causing huge waves of positive change in many of the industries that I frequent as we speak. Well, what I did not know is that there is also a very similar grammar approach that you can take in the land of Python as well. And that's where Karina Bartolome, hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly, has authored, get this, a Quartal document that showcases, for a very relatable example, the different types of syntax that you can have to implement grammar of tables in both R via GT and Python via Pandas and other libraries. But Mike, why don't you take us through what else you saw in Katrina's post here?
Absolutely. This is a really cool blog post in a lot of ways. And I guess I'll start by saying I really appreciate those who, like myself and Karina, try to fight back against the R versus Python language wars. And instead, maybe we just acknowledge that most of the good parts of both languages have been implemented in the other. I know that ggplot2 gets a lot of praise from many communities outside of R, including the Python community, because its flexibility and its power didn't exist in many of the popular visualization libraries in other languages. And I guess I would have sort of expected the same thing for tables, since I know how much of an effort RStudio and others have put into the GT package, and Rich especially. But it looks like, however, we can, and stop me if you're shocked, pretty much do the same thing in Python that we can do in R and make a really nice table. So this blog post starts out with a comparison of the final product and a really nice image showing the R built table and the Python built table side by side. And it really sets the tone for the blog post and the fact that these two things look pretty much identical. And Karina goes through the entire workflow, starting from loading the required packages in R and loading the required packages in Python. It does that sort of side by side code comparison all the way through the blog. So you can follow her steps in either R or Python, whichever your preference is, or both if you're interested in working with both languages, like I am, and see how she gets from point A and grabbing this subway data from Buenos Aires, Argentina, all the way to building these beautiful tables at the end of the blog post. So a really, really well done, interesting blog post, both showing off some great data visualization and comparing what we have available in R and Python.
And what's nice about this is that first, the structure of this document itself has great use of, you know, actually hiding the code initially on startup via these, clickable drop expanders. I forgot the term for it, but what's nice is that you can go to a specific part, to what you're most interested in and expand that out. And as you said, Mike, she's got these nice side by side tab views of the R and Python implementations of it. Really great for learning as you're thinking about, maybe either duplicating or doing another analysis in a different language. how these two, how these compare, to lack of a better word. And the visuals are really strikingly similar. It's, again, maybe we shouldn't be surprised, right? But it is great to see this in one place. And again, Quarto has made it super easy to put this all in one place. Very elegant structure here. Really enjoyed reading it. And yes, Reticulate was also used here in Quartal to help with that data handoff between R and Python and vice versa. And so it is very much supported here, just like it was in R Markdown back in the earlier days. So again, great demonstration of both Quarto in action and obviously building tables in an elegant grammar table fashion. Again, really great stuff. And certainly as I start building tables and I work with cross functional data science teams, it's great to know that if I need to dive into that other world, whenever that is, I have great resources to draw upon it.
Absolutely. And maybe I would just mention, if you haven't seen the blog post yet, please check it out. But these aren't just, regular old data tables. These are tables that have data visualizations. I'm talking choropleth maps. I'm talking bar charts. I'm talking polar area coordinate diagrams and line charts built into the cells within the table in a really cleanly implemented way. So it's absolutely worth checking out, even if you don't necessarily care about the R or the Python side. If you're just more of a data visualization practitioner who likes to make tables and likes sort of the integration between the larger graphical data visualization space as well as the tabular space and bringing those two things together, this is a great tutorial for that as well.
And I don't know if Karina listens to this, but if you are, and we're first of all big fans of your post, but hey, that little Art Studio table contest is out there. Maybe this is a good candidate for it. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I think it's all the work's already been done. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've mentioned that contest before, but definitely go to our studio site for more information on that contest. But yeah, table generation, many different flavors of it. Really cool to see. Speaking of cool to see, we got lots of other cool things to see in this issue. So we're going to take a little minute here to highlight some additional things that we saw. And as for me, part of me always likes to read or learn up on some of the driving mechanisms behind my favorite tools and packages, such as Shiny Test 2, which you've heard about in previous our weekly highlight episodes. That is built upon the concept of snapshot testing. And that's where Indrajit Patil has wrote a really awesome presentation. You want to guess what it was written in? Oh, gee, it's Quarto again, of how snapshot testing works within Test That and other extensions. So it's really cool for me to see, just the power of snapshot testing, some of the ins and outs of this in a very accessible example based on some text that the examples are running in Markdown, and how you can make sure that there aren't any regressions as you update those functions producing the text. So really cool learning material for me to follow up on as I begin my more rigorous testing adventures. But Mike, what did you find?
That's a great find. I found a blog post that I love seeing, which is one where a large corporation contributes to open source instead of just only working privately with closed source. So Microsoft has released a new repository package, our package called Viva Insights, which allows you to analyze and visualize Viva Leader Insights data. So I guess Microsoft has some sort of a platform called Microsoft Viva Advanced Insights, which used to be called Microsoft Workplace Analytics. And with this package that just serves as an API to this platform, it allows you to run pre-built analysis and visualizations off data with settings for HR variables, privacy threshold, etc. Allows you to leverage advanced analytics functions, which are built for Viva Insights metrics, and maybe integrate analysis of Viva Insights data with your R workflow seamlessly. So, maybe I can imagine if I'm building a Shiny app where I want to pull in some of this workplace analytics data, that this package might be a great place to do that. Viva Advanced Insights isn't a product or Workplace Analytics isn't a product that I'm familiar with, but maybe some of you listeners out there, it will resonate with. So this is one that you might want to check out. Recently, I guess this is speaking to me because recently I was working up in Databricks and trying to automatically connect to SharePoint, and was able to use one of Microsoft's 365
Oh,
REST
yes.
API
Yep, yep.
clients, which provided me with a really nice way to authenticate into SharePoint and move files up to SharePoint and bring files down from SharePoint into Databricks. So I appreciate the work that the folks at Microsoft have done to allow us to continue to work alongside them in open source world.
Yeah, it's always great to see, like you said, corporations giving back. And my familiarity with this particular product will be a bit amusing, but my at the day job, we use a lot of Microsoft products. Big shock there. But every Sunday evening, I get an email that's from Microsoft about Vivia insights into my week prior, about calendar time and other things like that. I've always wondered just what is really going on with that. So maybe this package would help me understand what's really going on with it if HR would let me access it. That's a story for another day. I don't know, but hey, it's nice to see that I can explore with R at least. So I may give that a spin later in the year and just see how far I can take that. But I will say you can go really far with just following our weekly every week. You've seen the great resource around Quarto lately and visualizations and tables. It's always something new every week. So you can find all the back catalog at rweekly.org. Also, this very podcast is always linked in every issue. So you can always have a listen to our back catalog of audio episodes. Lots of great insights that Mike has shared with us. And I tend to ramble a bit, but we always have fun. And we always enjoy hearing from you. As we mentioned last week, we'd love to hear as part of our celebration of 100 episodes coming up much sooner than I even realized. If you've had a great resource or a great favorite moment of our weekly highlights or our weekly project itself, and you'd like to share with us, please send us a shout out. The best way to get in touch with us would probably be on Twitter. My handle is at the RCast, and I'm always happy to hear from what all of you have been learning about from our weekly. And Mike, how can people get in touch with you with their stories?
I'm on Twitter as well at Mike_Ketchbrook, Ketchbrook.
Very nice. And also, if you see a great resource that you'd like to have shared in the upcoming issue, again, rweekly.org has a direct link to the upcoming issue draft. So you can simply send a pull request to our GitHub repo, and our curator for the week will be glad to get that into the issue. But yeah, that's the wrap on episode 98. Thanks as always to you, Mike, for another great episode. And we will be back with episode 99 of the Our Weekly Highlights podcast next week.